Shalom Israel, Shalom, Shalom. Brother Naquam, watchman for Israel, coming back at you with these precepts and another cold cut, giving, of course, our honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashima Mashiach, Malaki Bashai. Double honors to the elect elders of the house of David that's been in this truth for decades and decades, patiently waiting and laboring for the second coming of our Lord Yahushai. A hearty, mighty shalom to all of the mighty men of the Most High God who are out there in the highways and byways, pushing His truth, magnify the ministry, presenting their bodies as a living sacrifice, and enduring all things for the elect's sake. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to all of the men that may not be out there in the highways and byways as of yet, but they're working on it. They're getting built up in the spirit. They're praying, they're fasting, they're studying, they're being diligent, and they're abounding in the work of the Lord. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to all of the Aquath out there, the sincere sisters out there, zealous and diligent and on fire, moving in the spirit of our righteous foremothers. Shalom to the ancient men. Shalom to the children. Shalom to the elect of Israel scattered abroad throughout the four corners of the earth. And shalom to everybody tuning in there live for another midnight Shabbat, live through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashmi Abashai on this wicked festivity or festive day for the heathen, for the so-called white man, the Edomites, if you will, primarily here in Babylon the Great, celebrating 250 years of rape, 250 years of murder, 250 years of pillaging, robbery, 250 years of hypocrisy, extortion, 250 years of buck breaking, mockery, reproach, 250 years of blasphemy, ridicule, and all manner of evil, and any evil, wicked thing that you can think of. The so-called white man has created this day to celebrate it, worship Satan, and worship his supremacy over the sons of the living God. So shalom to everybody tuning in live through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Shaddai Israel, to me, Sweet Styles, Lamech, Pennington Sherrod, Brother Azariah Shalom King, HBK Lit, Yvette McKellar, and again, everybody else tuning in and that will tune in, Lord willing. Independence Day, the four horns of violence, right? Independence Day, the four horns of violence. Let's dive right into it through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashmi Awashai. Let's go to Jeremiah, right? We got a lot we want to get into. We're going to kick it off with Jeremiah chapter 50 and verse number 31. There's a lot that we want to touch on tonight through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashmi Awashai. This is Salaki, the so-called white man's day. I mean, there's fireworks going off right now, man. People are blowing off their fingers. People are drunk off of Budweisers, Miller's Light. You know, people are into all manner of shooting gunshots in the air, freaking off. You know, we're going to be teaching in D.C. tomorrow. We're doing an annual 4th of July or July unity camp led by or headed by House of Israel, HOI. You know, Most High willing. So you brothers that are in that DMV area, even if you kind of close by, we'll be out there teaching and pushing that word out on a high level. They're expecting over 2 million to 50 million. Some numbers are saying 50 million people to be out there, man. So Most High willing, the word goes out mightily and has free course. This is Jeremiah 50 and 31. Behold, I am against thee, O thou most proud, saith the Lord of hosts, for thy day is come, the time that I will visit thee. And this is the most proud kingdom to ever exist. This is more proud than the Babylonian Empire. This is more proud than the Assyrian. All these kingdoms that have ruled in time past, nobody takes the cake like the so-called white man, who has made himself the Most High God through artwork, religion, education. You understand, who has made himself Yahweh Shai, who the world calls Jesus Christ, in like manner, who has made himself the angels, fancied himself the children of Israel, and has created himself as a megalomaniac, man, to rule the earth. He is the most proud person on the earth, celebrating 250 years of utter hypocrisy. The Lord said, thy day is come, the time that I will visit thee. And the Most High is visiting them. He's killing them in Europe with heat waves. He's destroying them by famine. He's raising up other kingdoms against them. Jeremiah 50 and 32. And the most proud shall stumble and fall, and none shall raise him up. And I will kindle a fire in his cities, and it shall devour all round about him. And again, this is going into Babylon the Great. Jeremiah 50, it's going into Babylon the Great, which is the modern day name of America. The United States of America is found in the Bible, all throughout the Bible. You can read about it in Psalms, you can read about it in Revelation, you can read about it in Jeremiah, Isaiah, etc. The Bible captures all of the ancient kingdoms who had power over the known world. You read about the Egyptian Empire, you read about the Assyrian Empire in the Bible, actual kings, Tiglath-Pileser, Salmanassar. You read about Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, Alexander the Greek, Ptolemy as the king of the south. You understand? The Seleucid Empire and his sons as the king of the north. You read about all these different Pompeius, Linnaeus, and Pontius Pilate and Herod, all these men that actually walked the earth that you can see in any university library, any historical book. The Bible captures all of that. You don't think the Bible captures America? Here it is talking about Egypt and Rome. You don't think the Bible speaks about America? The kingdom with the greatest so-called military, greatest GDP, world renown, with influence. The Bible speaks against this place, man, about it falling and the Most High overthrowing it. Jeremiah 50 and 33, here's what I want. Thus said the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. So here we are in captivity to this day. The children of Israel, those are your so-called northern tribes, right? Reuben and Simeon, right? Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Gad, Naphtali, Ephraim, Manasseh, etc. Then you have the kingdom of Judah, Judah, Benjamin, Levi. They're oppressed together here on this side of the world, primarily in America. And those that took us captives, Esau, they held us fast and they refused to let us go. So we don't have any independence yet. Right? We don't have any liberty. We don't have any freedom. We can't just up and celebrate our delivery, man. That's going to come when Yahweh Shah returns. So this is not a day for us to be celebrating. You'll have Negroes caped with red, white, and blue. And the Negro is a creature of amazement because he's going to go above and beyond a so-called white man. He's going to have the glasses, the hat. Some of these Negroes, man, they're going to have, like I said, an actual cape. Mr. USA, maybe an S on their chest. We're still in slavery. You're celebrating the independence of a people who's still lynching you to this day. They just found a young so-called black girl lynched. A young so-called black man lynched. Like last week. You pay bills, mortgage, rent, insurance, you're into your car notes, financing things, gas and electric, you pay for water. You are still in captivity to this very day. I just want to make this point. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 14 and 17. It reads, I'm going to start at 16. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms? So when the so-called white man's taken out, he's going to be a mockery. And the people are going to squint their eyes and say, this is the guy? When he's in chains, when they're looking at him picking cotton in the field, getting his back beat in, having a foot on his neck. People are going to look at Esau in the days to come in the kingdom of heaven on the earth and say, this is the guy that was dropping bombs on the earth. This is the guy y'all was scared of, man. This is the guy that had y'all locked up. Him, right here, peeling away in the sun. Verse 17, that made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners. So God is letting you know that the so-called white man has done nothing but murder, bomb, destroy, and made the world a wilderness. He has cut down all of the trees. He has dropped atomic bombs, hydrogen bombs, damn near nuclear bombs, hypersonic missiles, destroyed cities, turned them into rubble. He made the world the wilderness. He destroyed the cities with pollution, chemtrails, biological warfare, man-made disease. And he did not open the house of his prisoners. We're the prisoners. We're the ones who can't celebrate their independence. We're the only ones, we're the only people on the earth still in captivity. Literally to this day, there's no other people in bondage except the children of Israel. And he has yet to open the house of his prisoners. There was just a brother that was exonerated. He did like 49 years, man. How many brothers are in prison that are telling you that they didn't do it, man? Multiple witnesses, clear evidence. The facts all line up and he's still locked up. You may not be in physical prison, but you're still in this captivity to this day. You can't leave this society, man. You can't leave America at your own leisure, at your own will. You got to check in. So the point is, there is no so-called Black, Hispanic, or Native American man, woman, or child that should even think to be celebrating Independence Day. And if you bought fireworks, you're going off. If you're getting all enticed by the fireworks in the air and the spectacular shows and the sounds and the sights and you're oohing and you're on, you're going off. And you need to check your spirit because your mind not right, man. You still got Israelites, man, watching the fireworks. Oh, it's not the Shabbat. I mean, the sun did go down. I mean, I just want to see, I just want to see the red, white, and blue. And brother, you're going to be destroyed, man. Because you haven't left this world yet. You're still part of this man's world. You're still in this man's system. Right? Let's go to Lamentations, chapter 1. So we're going through verses just to show you preliminarily that you're still in bondage. The Bible says he hasn't opened the house of his prisoners. He refused to let you go. He still has you captive. Even in Baruch 3:8, it says, we are yet this day in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us, right? For reproach and a curse, and to be subject unto payments. Lamentations chapter 1 and 3. Judah is gone into captivity because of affliction and because of great servitude. She dwelleth among the heathen. She findeth no rest. All her persecutors overtook her between the straits. And this is us, man. Yes, it's Judah because in its ancient context, this is after the Babylonian siege and Judah was in physical captivity. But this is relevant to this day. And it's not just applicable to the children of Judah, which are your so-called American Blacks. Even that can be taken to your so-called West Indians or your so-called Haitians. But it's also talking about all of the tribes. We're in captivity because of great affliction, great servitude, and we dwell among the heathen and we have no rest. You're always moving. You're always working. You're always trying to make something happen. You're always thinking about how you're going to get more money to make ends meet, how you're going to provide for your family, how you're going to pay your car off, how you're going to pay your house off, medical bills, unforeseen circumstances, working 12 hours, 15 hours, 60 hours a week, 65 hours a week, no pay, cut checks, all hell breaking loose. You don't have no rest. You have no rest. So this day right here, this 250 year in the making is not for us, right? This is not for the so-called Black, Hispanic, or Native American man, woman, and child to have any excitement, any joy, any passion about. Look at this. They're celebrating 250 years of robbery, murder, confusion, discord, and deceit on the earth. And the Most High sees this. You don't think the Most High is watching this proud? This is proud. That's why we kicked it off with Jeremiah 50. O thou most proud. Look at this. America, 250 years in the making. Countdown to America's 250th anniversary. Watch America's block party. Now the so-called white man throws block parties, right? He's throwing a live block party. Look at this, right? Live block party in America. Now, here it is. They're celebrating their independence, not to go deep into it, but from England, Great Britain. You can dive into that on your own. I believe the brother Riot did a cold cut. I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched a few minutes of it, but the title said July 4th, right? The history of July 4th. And I'm sure the brother went deep into it through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemi Awashai. But the men that signed the Declaration of Independence, about 90% of them who signed the Declaration of Independence to be independent from Britain rule, they all had Israelites in slavery. They all had the children of Israel in captivity, and they all had us in bondage. Now, I actually have that. I looked up how many signers of the Declaration of Independence had slaves. And this is their famous July 4th painting about them putting together the Declaration of Independence. Now, how many of these guys had you in slavery, man? How many of them cared about you? Were thinking about your welfare? 10 minutes prior to this, they were probably raping your foremother. 10 minutes after, they was probably molesting your son. Later that night, they were probably running lewd experiments on your cousins and aunts, man. But at this moment of time, it's supposed to be a staple of American history. Now, let me go back real quick. Here's the answer. How many people that signed the Declaration of Independence had slaves? Check this out. Historians estimate that at least 41 of the 56 signers, it's almost, 80%? A little less, maybe, right? 41 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were slaveholders at some point in their lives. This included major figures like Thomas Jefferson, who held hundreds of enslaved people. Can you see that, man? 41 out of 56. What percent is that, man? What are we talking here? Right? What are we talking here? 41 out of 56. What, that's 77%? 73%? You see that? And these are the men that people look up to, man. And they were raping, robbing, killing, murdering, lynching. Right? They were doing all that and above. Every so-called white man, and they say maybe the other, 15 didn't own slaves. Well, they came from slave money. Right? They came from slave money to be in that kind of position. They came from the wealth that came from the cotton picking, tobacco picking, sugarcane cutting, and hardcore labor of the sons of the living God. So even the 15 who you might try to say are innocent, they're not innocent. This is the same thing, right? It reads, during and after, this is Wikipedia, slavery and the United States founding fathers. During and after the American Revolution, many of the founding fathers of the United States owned slaves and lived in a slave society. Additionally, U.S. founding documents such as the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution did not expressly forbid the institution of slavery. So a lot of Negroes are sick, man. And I know there's going to be millions of coons out there, DC, celebrating July 4th, and they have no idea who they are and what they're doing and why they're doing it. Now, this is let me pull this up real quick. I had this too. I typed in atrocities before we really dive deep into it, we have to speak about this because it's part of the lesson. Atrocities by founding fathers to slaves. I put an AI overview. It says, look at this. The founding fathers committed, justified, and benefited from the atrocities of slavery, despite declaring that all men are created equal. So this is hypocrisy. 250 years of proud hypocrisy. This contradiction remains one of the darkest paradoxes in American history, characterized by the systemic commodification, exploitation, and brutalization of human beings, which are the children of Israel, the children of the living God. I'm not going to dive too deep into the laws and things of that nature, but let's go to Jeremiah real quick, right? Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 22 and 13. Just got to touch on this very quickly. Jeremiah 22 and 13. Woe unto him that buildeth his house by unrighteousness, and his chambers by wrong, that useth his neighbor's service without wages, and giveth him not for his work. So the Bible speaks about how you're supposed to pay a man when the sun goes down, and Deuteronomy, the 24th chapter, right? How you do all things in weight and in measure, with equity and judgment. The scriptures speak about not holding on to what your neighbors do when you have power to do it. So when you go against the grain and you build up an entire society, an entire kingdom by sin and by wrong, but then you come out and say, well, all men are equal, you'll be a hypocrite and a demon. And you use your neighbor's service without wages. You're supposed to pay a man when the sun go down. And even if he had a contract for 6 years, the 7th year, the year of release, you couldn't exact that year. He had to go free. And you had to furnish him, depending on his circumstance. So you so-called white man, you didn't keep not one law in the Bible. The laws speak about servitude, how to treat a slave, indentured servitude, bondage, the release of debts, the year of jubilee, the exaction of debts, a redemption granted for the land, a redemption for a brother who may be in bondage. You didn't keep not one of those, man. And giveth him not for his work. Now, this is I'm not going to read this whole thing, but this is the founding fathers' views of slavery. That is a few, or a key part I want to touch on, because we got to touch on this prophecy as well. This is, let's see. Here's what I want. Okay. Many of the founding fathers owned numerous slaves, such as George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison. Others only owned a few slaves, such as Benjamin Franklin. And everybody wants to paint Benjamin Franklin like he's this innocent white man. If you in $100 bill, you done did something wicked, man. If you're in the highest level of currency for the so-called white man, you was definitely a damn demon. So Benjamin Franklin's a demon. And they all had slaves. And still others married into large slave-owning families, such as Alexander Hamilton. All these guys on the money, man. Most of them. Despite this, all expressed a wish at some point to see the institution gradually abolished, which is may not be true. Well, I don't believe it. I'm gonna just come out and say that. I don't believe they all wanted to see it abolished. Benjamin Franklin, who owned slaves early in his life, later became president. And I'm gonna say this, man, he probably stole, I guarantee he stole some of those brothers' ideas. He's supposed to be this great inventor, this great innovator. More than likely, he stole that from the brothers he had in captivity. So he later became president of the first abolitionist society in the U.S. Despite their talk and wish for gradual abolition, no national abolition legislation ever materialized. So it was a scam. It was all a scam. Now, what else did I have? You had this individual. Let me pull this up real quick. I just want to touch on this quick history. For all you so-called Black Hispanics and Native Americans that celebrate Independence Day, here's what the Lord said, Bob. Right? Let me get this quick precept. Salakia in James 5. Right? Let me get this real quick in James 5. And we didn't even get really deep into the lesson yet, but we have to preface it with this. This is James chapter 5 and verse 1. Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. So James is rebuking the elite so-called white men who run this society, the oligarchy, the aristocracy, if you're going to understand, the elites, the Illuminati. Well, brother, don't say that. Brother says rich men. That means LeBron James. That means, Michael Jordan. No, that's not talking about every rich man who has over $1 million. This is speaking about the elites. Let's read on. You'll know that as you read on. Your riches are corrupted and your garments are moth-eaten. And how is the so-called white man riches corrupted? We read it in Jeremiah 22 and 13 because he got it through deception and theft. James 5 and 3. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped treasure together for the last days. So all of that wealth that they gather is going to testify against them. See, judgment has to be laid out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. That's the law. The Lord said, one witness shall not rise up against any for any iniquity that he doeth. At the mouth of 2 witnesses, or at the mouth of 3 witnesses, shall the matter be established. Now, nobody's going to sit there and testify against the so-called white man for the crimes and the evil that he's done, except us. But there's another witness, and another witness that's going to testify against him are the materials and the wealth that he actually stole from the sons of the living God. They're going to testify and say, well, hold on. You're saying that you're not wicked, but how did I get here? That's what the gold is saying. That's what the silver is saying. They're all speaking up in a spiritual sense, condemning the so-called white man. Here's the point I wanted, James 5 and 4. Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. Ye have lived in pleasure on the earth and been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts as in a day of slaughter. Ye have condemned and killed the just, and the heat doth not resist you. So the Most High is having them get away with this for a moment of time. And all our wealth, riches, it's all kept back by fraud, taxes, robbery, oppression. All of the wealth that's due to the sons of God has been stolen. Now, all these men who created the Constitution, who created Declaration of Independence, they're all thieves, homosexuals, and liars. Right? Now, this is I want to touch on this quick point. There's a book called Never Caught, right? For everybody that loves George Washington, right? There's a book called Never Caught. Now, there's this woman, her name is Ona Judge, right? Ona Judge. Now, this book details this demon George Washington's pursuit for a runaway slave named Ona Judge. Now, it says, Never Caught, the Washington's relentless pursuit of their runaway slave, Ona Judge. Now, the Bible tells you, man, if your slave runs away, you can't go pursue him because there's a reason that he ran away. It reads, when George Washington was elected president, he reluctantly left behind his Mount Vernon, his beloved Mount Vernon, to serve in Philadelphia, the temporary seat of the nation's capital. And setting up his household, he brought along 9 slaves, including Ona Judge. As the president grew accustomed to northern ways, there was one change he couldn't abide. Pennsylvania's law required enslaved people to be set free after 6 months of residency in the state, and that's still wicked, right? But that was their law. After 6 months, you had to let them go. Rather than comply, Washington decided to circumvent the law. This is hypocrisy. He don't even keep his own laws. Rather than comply, Washington decided to circumvent the law, meaning go around it. Every 6 months, he sent the slaves back down south just as the clock was about to expire. Don't that sound like the so-called white man? Imagine you were a slave in PA. 6 months, you get set free. It's 5 months that go by. It's 1 more month left. You count down the days. 30 days, 29 days, 15 days, 10 days, 5 days left, 3 days left, 2 days left, 1 day left. That 1 day that's left, he take you captive, rape you, punch you in the mouth, send you back down south, bring you back up, and start your 6 months all over again. And you go through the same process of hypocrisy and evil. You think you're going to be let go in 6 months? 2 days left, 1 day left, 1 hour left, clock about to strike midnight, he punch you in the mouth, rape you, steal your son, send you back down south, bring you back up, and start your 6 months all over again. This is the principle and the foundation of American society. And as we constantly read about key spirits of hypocrisy, deception, wickedness, evil, robbery, this is what the so-called white man is promoting July 4th. 250 years of this. Now let's read on. Though Ona Judge lived a life of relative comfort, she was denied freedom. So when the opportunity presented itself, one clear and present spring day in Philly, Judge left everything she knew to escape to England, Salaki. So she fled. Yet freedom would not come without its cost. At just 22 years old, Ona became the subject of an intense manhunt led by George Washington, who used his political and personal contacts to recapture his property. Now, they don't tell you that in school. When I was growing up, they said George Washington never lied. They said he did not chop down that cherry tree. He never lied, or was that Abraham Lincoln? One of them demons never lied. We were actually, that was part of the curriculum. I don't know if you brothers remember that. But they actually used to teach that. It was part of the actual test, part of the actual classes. You could pass or fail based off of if you can answer that question right. Was George Washington a liar? And you have to hold your right hand up to the Most High God and say, no, he wasn't a liar. And they'll stamp that A on your paper and pass you. You can move on to the next grade. But here's what we're reading about. He led a manhunt, right? A crisp and compulsively readable feat of research and storytelling. Historian and National Book Award finalist Erica Armstrong Dunbar weaves a powerful tale and offers fascinating new scholarship, and it ain't new, on how one young woman risked everything to gain freedom from the famous founding father and most powerful man in the U.S. at the time. And that's an actual system, huh? Ona Judge, right? Never caught. never got caught. She escaped George Washington's daily rapes, daily robs, and his daily murders. Right? And they don't teach this in school, man. You know? That he led a manhunt to capture this sister. But Yahweh Shai was with this sister and delivered her from the evils of oppression. And America is not the only society, man, to rape, rob, and murder, lead manhunts, and destroy the children of Israel, man. All these nations have refused to give us independence. Let's go to Zechariah, right? All these nations are of the same mind. This is the book of Zechariah, chapter 1 and verse 18. It reads, Then lifted I up mine eyes and saw, and behold, 4 horns. So Zechariah saw many visions. When you read the book of Zechariah, it's a deep book in all honesty. There's a lot of visions, a lot of prophecy that he saw. Now, Zechariah, one of the visions that he saw is he saw 4 horns. All right, let's read the rest of this vision, then we'll break it down. And what does it have to do with Independence Day? And I said unto the angel that talked with me, What be these? And he answered me, These are the horns which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. And the Lord showed me 4 carpenters. Then said I, What come these to do? And he spake, saying, These are the horns which have scattered Judah, so that no man did lift up his head. But these are come to fray them, to cast out the horns of the Gentiles, who lifted up their horn over the land of Judah to scatter it. So this was a vision that he saw. And it started with 4 horns. Now, the horns represent, a horn represents strength in the Bible. It represents power and it represents strength. All right, let's get that. Let's prove that real quick. Let's go to Psalms, right? Chapter 132 and 17. This is Psalms chapter 132 and verse number 17. There will I make the horn of David to bud. I have ordained the lamp for mine anointed. So your horn represents your power or your strength. Now, our horn is Yahweh Shai. Okay? Our horn is Yahweh Shai. That's in Luke chapter 1 and 68, right? St. Luke chapter 1 and 68. It reads, Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, for he hath visited and redeemed his people, and hath raised up an horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David, as he spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, which have been since the world began. So who's the horn of our salvation? Yahweh Shai. The strength of our salvation is coming by our Redeemer, our King, Yahweh Shai. Right? Let's go to Revelation 13 and 11. So Zechariah saw 4 horns. A horn in the Bible, in a metaphoric sense, represents power and strength. This is Revelation. We'll get one more just to testify to that. Revelation chapter 13 and verse 11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Now this beast is America. And the 2 horns represent the so-called white man's so-called religion, so-called politics. Those are his strength. You understand? You can break it down on a more granular sense, but all in all, that's what it's going into. That's how he attacks and destroys. Through Satanism, witchcraft, sorcery, deception. That's what his religion truly is. And he uses laws like financial laws and democracy and the World Bank and the IMF and different things to be able to also attack you and cripple you financially by putting laws into play. That's the strength of America. They come off peaceable. That's their strength, but they're really a violent kingdom. They come off like a lamb, docile, peaceable, calm, but they're violent like a dragon. So the horn is strength and power. Now, you may say, well, okay, well, it's 4 horns. That means there's 4 different powers or 4 different kingdoms. This number 4 is not a literal, it's not meant to be taken literal. Okay. And it's not an actual literal horn. These are 4 powers that the Most High set up, right? 4 powers. Let's get a precept on this real quick. Maybe think of this in Colossians, right? Powers. This is Colossians chapter 1 and verse number 16. Quick precept for the horns. For by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him. So Yahweh used Yahushai to make everything you can see and everything that you cannot see. Now, one of the creations of Yahweh Shai are the powers. In Colossians 1 and 16, you have terrestrial powers and you have celestial powers. Terrestrial powers are different kingdoms, right? China's a power. Russia's a power. America's a power. They call them global world powers. And you have celestial powers like Michael the Archangel, Satan, Gabriel, Uriel, Raphael. Those are celestial powers. The horns in Zechariah 5 are the terrestrial powers, the earthly powers, the kingdoms, if you can understand, of men that have power over the sons of the living God. Now, I want to go into this word powers in the Greek, right? The word powers, it's exousia, and it reads, see, they give all these definitions. Let's get the right one, right? Let's get the right one. Let's see. Okay, they got the power, or it's like the power of rule or government. The power of him by whose will and commands must be submitted to by others and obeyed. So those are governments, and the power of rule comes from men. So you have earthly powers, right? A horn brings power and it brings strength. There's another precept I wanted. Oh, let's get this in 2 Peter 3, right? It's like it was 2 Peter 3. Made me think of this one as well through the spirit and power. Yahweh Shai. 2 Peter chapter 3, and I want verse number, let's see, power, bear with me. I may have to get Matthew. Let me get Matthew, Slocky. That's what I want. Yeah, that's what I want. In Matthew 24. Okay, this is what I want, Slocky. This is Matthew 24 and 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. These are your horns. The powers of the heavens are the kingdoms on the earth. So the tribulation is the time of Jacob's trouble, the hour of temptation, the great tribulation, if you can understand, the eclipse and climax of World War III. As those days are happening in real time, you're going to have the wisdom and the knowledge and the understanding of the nations depleted. You're not going to have any infrastructure. You're not going to have any running cities. You're not going to have any, what's the word I'm looking for? Medical usage of these kingdoms, any more science. Their armies are going to be decimated. There's going to be famines. There's going to be blackouts. There's going to be martial law. Not no political scientist, not no engineer. None of these people are going to have answers to keep these kingdoms afloat in those days. because World War III is going to destroy the entire infrastructure of the known world. So the wisdom and the understanding is going to be taken out. The stars falling from heaven are the missiles, and the powers of the heavens being shaken again are the different kingdoms. That's what Zechariah saw. These four horns are the powers of the heavens, these terrestrial kingdoms. Now, it says four, but four is not a number biblically in this context. We'll put it in this context that should be taken literal, right? Four is a number that means an indefinite amount, right? Numbers have meanings in the Bible. We've covered that plenty of times, right? 7 is a number that means perfection or an indefinite amount. 8 is a number that means an infinite amount. You read about that in Ecclesiastes 11 and 1 on down. Micah, the 5th chapter. We have entire lessons on biblical numerology on the right-hand side. So touching on four is a number that the Bible uses as an indefinite amount. All right, let's prove that. All right, let's prove that. Let's go to the book of Zechariah, chapter 2. This is Zechariah, chapter 2, and verse number 6. Ho, ho, come forth, and flee from the land of the north, said the Lord, for I have spread you abroad as the four winds of the heaven, said the Lord. So the four winds of heaven means what? North, south, east, and west. Those are the four winds of the heaven, the four directional ordinances that compass the whole earth. When you look at a compass, it compasses the whole earth by four winds or four major directional ordinances. Right? Let's just pull this up real quick, just so brothers can understand. Okay. And this is like similar to brothers understand a layout of the earth. So the four winds means the entire earth, the whole compass of the earth. 360 degrees. Let's get another precept for this four, just so brothers understand this. Let's go back to Matthew 24. I didn't plan on going on to this, but I want to go back to this. And let's read 31. Matthew 24 and 31. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. So now the four winds are now being described on a more detailed level. They represent one end of heaven to the other, the entire compass of the known world. Let's get one more. Let's go to Jeremiah 49. Let's get three witnesses. Slacky, I want Jeremiah 49 and 36. So don't think four as a literal number, right? And we'll further prove that. Because we'll prove it, right? But this is Jeremiah 49 and 36. And upon Elam will I bring the four winds from the four quarters of heaven, and will scatter them towards all those winds. And there should be no nation, whether the outcast of Elam shall not come. Why won't there be any nation where they're not going to come? Because they're going to be scattered in every nation. The four quarters, the four winds. Right? Now, further proof that four is not a number that should be taken literal outside of those three precepts. Let's go to Proverbs chapter. Actually, let's do Amos. All right, we're going to go to Proverbs 2, but I want to do Amos first. All right. This is Amos chapter 1 and verse number 3. See how the Most High uses the number 4. Thus said the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Damascus, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they have threshed Gilead with threshing instruments of iron. So the Most High got judgment for these Syrians, for what they have done to the Israelites. Now, the Most High said, I'm not going to turn away the punishment thereof for 3 transgressions and for 4, meaning for many, for 3 sins and for many, for an indefinite amount. Let's jump down. Amos, and this was common knowledge amongst the Hebrews. We dealt with that succession of numbers for 3 and for 4, for 7 and 8, for 6 and 7. That's all throughout the Bible. The Lord said in Proverbs chapter 6 and 16, these 6 things that the Lord hate, yea, 7 are an abomination unto him. In Amos, it says for 3 transgressions and for 4. The Lord said in Ecclesiastes 11, give a portion to 7 and also to 8. So you see that type of poetic speech all throughout the Bible. So it's never meant to be taken literal. You have to tap into the ancient mind of a Hebrew to understand how we spoke and what numbers meant and how we were poetic in our speech. Amos chapter 1 and 6. Again, you see this literary theme being used again. Thus said the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Gaza and for 4, I would not turn away the punishment thereof, because they carried away captive the whole captivity to deliver them up to Edom. So the Philistines led us into slavery and gave us into the hands of the so-called white man. Now, this term, let's put a definition of this term where they do 3 to 4 or 7 to 8. It's called ascending numerical parallelism. This is what the so-called white man calls it. Right? Ascending numerical, right? Parallelism. Check this out. Ascending numerical parallelism is a poetic and rhetorical device commonly found in ancient Near Eastern and biblical culture. So you brothers that's reading that and you're taking numbers literal when it shouldn't be taken literal, you have to tap into the mind of a Near Eastern ancient Semitic man. Okay, it's a poetic rhetorical device commonly used or commonly found in ancient Near Eastern and biblical culture or biblical literature. It presents a statement with a specific number, then repeats the statement with the next higher number. The purpose of the device is not mathematical, rather it serves to heighten emphasis, build dramatic tension, and signal that a grand conclusion is coming. Here's what we really want: to show completeness. So the number 4 is a number of completeness. Impose a sense of totality, intensity, or abundance. So that's why the number 8 and the number 4 both mean completeness. It's called also numerical heightening. So they got the same thing in Proverbs. See this Proverbs chapter 30 and 15. There are 3 things that are never satisfied, 4 that never say enough. See, they got it in Amos 3. All right. Let's do this purpose. Let's type this in again. Okay. Just reading this one more time. Ascending numerical parallelism is an ancient literary device primarily used in Semitic poetry, such as in the Hebrew Bible. And there's different types of poetry. You have haiku. I remember this back in the day. They taught this in the so-called white man school. You had haikus, you had different poetic stanzas, and you had alliteration. You had all types of stuff, man, that we had to learn growing up. That's how they wrote their poetry. And we had to learn all that stuff. But this is how we have to learn the Bible. Okay? So you don't take things out of context or break prophecy down in such a lewd manner. Again, its main purpose is to heighten tension, emphasize the climax of a list, and indicate completeness or a tipping point for divine judgment. So again, when we're dealing with that number 4 in Zechariah, it's not meant to be taken literally, right? It's not meant to say, okay, well, there's actually 4 and okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. No, because there's not actually 4 kingdoms that scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem, right? You have multiple kingdoms, many nations have played a part in our demise, right? Let's go to First Maccabees 2, right? First Maccabees chapter 2 and verse number 10. It reads, "What nation hath not had a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoil?" So every nation has been involved. Every nation has been involved. The Edomites, the Philistines, the Moabites. When you pull up the 18 nations chart, right? Oh, I spelled that wrong, right? But look, when you look at the 18 nations, you got Israel, Edom, Elam, Ashur, Aram, Ishmael, Moab, Ammon, Cush, Mizraim, Phut, Canaan, Gomer, Magog, Javan, Ashkenaz, Tarshish, and Kittim. Whether you want to believe it or accept it or not, all of these nations have played a part in scattering, destroying, and oppressing the children of Israel. Everybody. Now, one of these nations or some of these nations have had more impact, like the so-called white man, the Ishmaelites, etc. But it doesn't take away from the fact that all these nations have had a part in our spoil and in our demise. Let's go to Psalms 83. Let's get the classic. The Lord runs down these nations. This is Psalms chapter 83 and verse 6. The tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites, of Moab and the Hagarenes, Gabal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Ashur also is joined with them. They have hope in the children of Lot Salah. So these are nations that have conspired and consulted against the Most High, Yahushua, and the children of Israel. And they're all named in order. And clearly you see a plethora of different nations who have played a part in our destruction. So Zechariah 1, these 4 horns, they're being explained based off of what they have done to the Israelites. Right, let's read this again in Zechariah chapter 1 and 19. Right, Zechariah chapter 1 and verse 19. "And I said unto the angel that talked with me, What be these? And he answered me, These are the horns which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem." So all of the tribes. Okay, let's go to Joel, the 3rd chapter. So all these nations, man, have played a part in our destruction. This is Joel chapter 3 and verse 1. "For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem," really your northern kingdom and your southern kingdom, the Most High is going to free us from slavery. We don't have to wait, and be disappointed because, Esau's having his 250th year and we're still in captivity. No, there's a set time where the Most High is going to deliver us. And we believe that. The Most High said he appointed his bounds that he cannot pass. And the number of his months are with thee. The Lord got this so-called white man's rulership down to the second. He's going to save the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Now, check this out. This is Joel 3 and 2. I will also gather all nations, not some. I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. So who scattered us amongst the nations? All the nations. Who was privy to the land being parted and divided? All nations. All of the nations, according to Joel 3, have played a part in us being scattered and have been privy to and or played a major part to the land being parted and divided. Let's get that in Daniel 11. Right, it made me think of this in Daniel 11. This is the book of Daniel, chapter 11, and verse number 39. It reads, thus shall he do at the most strongholds with the strange God, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory, and he shall cause them to rule over many, and shall divide the land for gain. So that he is the so-called white man in this context, primarily the king of the north, chiefly the Edomite here in Babylon the Great. And the most strongholds that he conquers and deals with are these various kingdoms and powers and militaries. The strange God is the God of forces that you read about, the God of power, the God of wealth, Satan, if you will. And he dedicates all of his spoils and children that he steals and all of his gold that he steals. He acknowledges this God by giving him the things that he has conquered in war. That's what this means right here. Whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory. And he shall cause them to rule over many. Who's to them? The other kingdoms who are in bed with America, with the Edomites. And he set them up in power. And he divided the land for gain. So everybody is complicit to us and our situation. And you got people that say, well, maybe it's not the Chinese man. Maybe it is the Chinese man. It's the Arab man. It's all these nations. Now, these low-level Moabites and Ammonites and Hamites, they may not know exactly what's going on, but it's not an excuse. Some of these people are drunk. They don't know, man. But they're the powers above them, they're leaders. They know exactly what the deal is. So they're all going to be judged as a whole. The Most High is going to judge these nations as a whole. These are the horns that have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 50. Okay. This is Jeremiah chapter 50 and verse number 17. Israel is a scattered sheep. The lions have driven him away. First, the king of Assyria hath devoured him, and last, this Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, hath broken his bones. So we're a scattered sheep, and we're driven away by these other nations. So the four horns have scattered Judah, they have scattered Jerusalem, and they have scattered Israel. That's what causes us, or one of the main reasons why we're scattered, due to the lions. Who are the lions? These other nations, the king of Assyria, the king of Babylon, and these other powers, man. We're scattered so much, and it's really us being driven away by slavery, by captivity. All these nations, we read that in First Maccabees 2 and 10, they all had a part in scattering us. I actually had this pulled up. This one. All right. So these dates are somewhat approximate. They may not be exact to the T, but this is the captivity of Israel, right? You got the Egyptian Empire. Now, they haven't played a major role in scattering us because we all came out as a whole, but they're not exempt. They are not exempt because even them, they're still a nation within itself, and they're involved even in today's time with keeping us oppressed. They may not be the true Egyptians of old, but they're in that land. They're saying that they're those people, rather the Greek babies, Ishmaelite babies. Egypt is still involved. Brother might say, well, hold on, brother, that was 4,000 years ago. Well, you'd be a damn fool, man, to think that they're still not thinking about oppressing you. Or at these different summits and these different United Nations meetings that they're not speaking. Then you had the time of the judges, where we were in slavery for 111 years. The 111 years is the total time of the documented slavery from the Philistines, from all these different nations, king of Mesopotamia. You can read about the different times where we were in captivity. The Midianites had us in captivity for a period of time. Let's actually pull that up. What nations and judges had the Israelites in slavery, right? And then we'll just get that list. I named a few of them. See that? The king of Mesopotamia for 8 years. King of Moab for 18 years. King of Canaan for 20 years. King of Midian for 7 years. King of Ammon for 18 years. And the Philistines for 40 years. All right, that's where you get this number from, for about 111 years or so. So we read about the Moabites. It's like we read about the Philistines, Ammonites, Midianites, Moabites, right? Mesopotamia, those are your Syrians. All these heathen, man. All these heathen have to answer for what they have done to the children of Israel. You had the Assyrian Empire. We were taken captive around 722 BC or so. And the northern kingdom, they took the counsel and they said, you know what? We're going to go into a land where never mankind dwelt, that there we might keep our own laws. That's in 2nd Ezra, chapter 13 and 40 on down. Then the Assyrian Empire fell, right? Remember, the Assyrian Empire fell by the Medes and by the Neo-Babylonian Empire around 620, really 609 BC. Around 609 BC, the Assyrian Empire fell by Cyaxares and Nabopolassar. They had a joint coalition to take down the Assyrian Empire at that time. You had a roughly 70-year captivity during the Babylonian Empire. The Medo-Persian Empire, it wasn't as a strict rulership during the time of the Medes and the Persians, because the Most High put a spirit on those Persian kings to deal with us. We were still in slavery, but they dealt a little bit more, less strict with us. Cyrus and Artaxerxes and these different kings, the Most High had a spirit on them Persians to be able to allow us to build the walls, build the temple, build the gates, and repair the city. You had the Greek Empire, right? They were in power from 322 to 63 BC. Roman Empire, right? 63, they got 63 BC. Again, these dates, you can qualify these dates. You can go and, Some of these dates are subject to the historian and to the scholar. The Roman Empire starts around 27 BC, right? That's when the empire actually began. But they put 63 BC. That 27 is around the time that Octavian or Augustus became the ruler at this time. And they transitioned out of the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire. So again, you can, always go and look at these dates, and according to the scholar or the historian, that's what we're going to start the date off. You had this Silk Road slave trade or the Oriental slave trade, where we were traded to China, traded to Japan, traded to Southeast Asia. Our people they're all over the earth, man. We're in Korea, Vietnam, the Philippines. You had slave boats Portugal took slaves and traded them to East Africa, or took them from East Africa and traded them to China. Tang Dynasty, Ming Dynasty. All those are the Elamites and the Edomites and the Moabites. So when you let me go back to this in Zechariah 1. Let me read this part again. Zechariah chapter 1 and 19. And I said unto the angel that talked with me, what be these? And he answered me, these are the horns, meaning these are the powers. These are the kingdoms which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. So all these nations, that's what we're showing you, have played a part in rulership and or slavery. And this is an approximate year, right? 650, 1900, trans-Saharan or sub-Saharan slave trade. A lot of you brothers, know about the sub-Saharan slave trade, where those Hamites and them Arabs sold us to that so-called white man. Then you have the transatlantic slave trade, and you have present-day Babylon the Great, right? So you're dealing with the four horns, you're dealing with the kingdoms that are responsible for slavery and distributing the children of Israel throughout the four corners of the earth. And the main forms of scattering are the Silk Road slave trade. Some scholars still call it the Oriental slave trade. The sub-Saharan slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade are three major ways that the Israelites were scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. There's other slave trades as well, but those are three major ones on how the four horns scattered us. We read in Jeremiah 50 that they're called the lions. Let's read this again. Jeremiah chapter 50 and 17. Israel is a scattered sheep. The lions have driven him away. And we were driven away by various slave trades, displacements, and various captivities. First, the king of Assyria had devoured him, and last, this Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, have broken his bones. Let's go to Isaiah 11. Right? Why do you think there's a prophecy that says this in Isaiah 11 and 11? It reads, and this shall come to pass in that day, that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which be left from Assyria and from Egypt and from Pathros and from Cush and from Elam and from Shinar and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea. So the second time is when Yahweh Shah returns to deliver us. Our people are in Assyria right now. Our people are in Egypt, Pathros. Our people are in Cush, which is Ethiopia, Elam. Our people are in Sri Lanka. You got Israelites in India. You have Israelites in Pakistan. You got Israelites in Nepal. All them Elamite countries, Israel is there. I know IUIC, they travel to some of these places, man. And they do that extensive research to find out who may potentially be Israelites based off of history, and they actually go out there, which is good. And for those who have access to internet, brothers that can't go out there, you got the internet, man. You can see the different nations that may be tuning in. So the word is going out. Shinar is modern day Iraq. Yes, there are Israelites that live in Iraq right now. Baghdad, calling on the name of Yahweh Bashmi Awashah. From the islands of the sea, Micronesia, Oceania, New Zealand, the Tonga people, Samoa, Peloponnesian Islands, Polynesian Islands. You got Israelites on just remote islands in the Bible, opening up the scriptures, going through the breakdowns, going through the precepts, scattered abroad. How the hell did we all get here? The nations have scattered us. Let's go, and that's the curse. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28 and 25. The lions have driven us away. Right? The lions have driven us away. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse number 25. Yahweh Bashmi Awashai shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. Not some of the kingdoms, all the kingdoms. This is why you have the term diaspora. Right? Diaspora is a scattered population whose origin lies in a separate geographic homeland, originating from the ancient Greek for dispersion. The term encompasses communities living outside their ancestral lands. Let me read that again. So we're the only people that can be going through a diaspora because we're living outside of our ancestral lands. The other people can go back to their lands. Who continue to maintain strong cultural, emotional, and political ties to their heritage. Let's see the causes and origins of a scattering. Here's what the 4 horns have done. We have no independence, right? Yet, it reads, while the term originally referred specifically to the historical exile of the Israelite people, it says what it says, but we know what it means. It now broadly applies to any group separated from its homeland. Dispersals generally occur in 2 main drivers. What do we read in Jeremiah? The lions have driven them away. Here's one of the main reasons that we were driven away. Forced displacement. Communities uprooted by conquest, enslavement, such as the transatlantic slave trade, war, famine, and political persecution. Voluntary migration, people who leave their ancestral lands seeking better economic opportunities, education, or employment. Yeah, you had a lot of Israelites who voluntarily left, man. You know, they lived in Alexandria, they went to parts of Rome, you know. So our people are scattered abroad by means of the horns, right? By means of the horns. Let's go to 2 Kings. Let's kind of dive a little bit further into that. As we showed here, the different kingdoms who played a part in it. One of them, again, let's talk about this one, the Assyrian Empire. We're not going to dive into all of these on a deep level, but we just want to, prove all things. Now, judges, we weren't necessarily scattered abroad by some of these kings, right? We were oppressed, but we still remain within the confines of the 12 distributed lands that the Most High gave the tribes, right? But not until the Assyrian Empire is when we physically were scattered abroad. right? Let's get that in 2 Kings chapter 15. Again, no other nation has had to go through these things but us, right? No other nation has had to even come close to dealing with all of the hell that we're dealing with. All right. This is 2 Kings chapter 15 and verse number 19. And Pul, the king of Assyria, came against the land, and Menahem gave Pul 1,000 talents of silver in his hand, that his hand might be with him to confirm the kingdom in his hand. And Menahem, Slakia, exacted the money of Israel, even all the mighty men of wealth, of each man 50 shekels of silver to give to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria turned back and stayed not there in the land. Now remember, during this time, you had a war going on between the northern kingdom and the king of Assyria. You had these Assyrian kings, Shalmaneser, Pul, right? All these different men. When you really go into this man, Pul, right? Let's go into this Pul. It's really another name, right? It's a different name. Pul is the Babylonian name for Tiglath-Pileser III, the king of Assyria. So this is an actual man who played a major role in the scattering of Israel. Tiglath-Pileser III. Now, let's go to 2 Kings. Let's stay in the same chapter, chapter 15, and verse number 29. 2 Kings 15 and 29. And the days of Pekah, king of Israel, came Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and took Ijon, and Abel-Beth-Maacah, and Genoa, and Kadesh, and Hazor, and Gilead, and Galilee, all the land of Naphtali, and carried them captive to Assyria. So you had different deportations for the Assyrian Empire. This was the first one, where they took Naphtali, right? And a lot of that northern tribes, Dan, etc. And they brought them into the cities of the Medes and into the cities of the Assyrians. That's in 2 Kings 15 and 23. Yes, you had a major deportation in 722 BC, but you had these deportations going on even prior. The main one that we all are familiar with is 2 Kings 17, when we talk about the northern kingdom being split. 2 Kings chapter 17 and verse number 23. Until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants the prophets, so was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria until this day, and until the day that this was written, right? They were carried away captive. Now, here's a map of the deportations that happened to the northern kingdom by means of some of the four horns, right? We're kind of getting a little more granular with this. So you see, Tiglath-Pileser came in 734 to 732 BC. We read that in 2 Kings 15 and 29. This purple map, or the purple, is the route of deportation, and they came to Nineveh. Then you had another deportation by Shalmaneser V and Sargon II. That was around 729 to 724 BC. Some say 722 BC. That's the red. And they were conquered and brought to different cities. Then a final deportation by Sargon II in 716 BC. So these are the lions that drove us away from Samaria and led us into different parts of the world. Now, again, in 2 Kings, Salakia, Second Ezra, the 10th chapter, you read about how the northern kingdom had a council amongst themselves that they would leave and go into a land where never mankind dwelt. Let's get that in Second Ezra chapter 10. Right? Let's get that in Second Ezra, the 10th chapter. Right? That is some history, man, because we got to know that history. You leave it up to the so-called white man, he'll tell you that the so-called Native Americans came over here by means of the Bering Strait some 30,000 or so odd years ago, which he can never prove. This devil can never prove anything that he says. Right? He can't prove anything. Second Ezra chapter 13, Salakia, I'm in chapter 10. I went chapter 13, Salakia. Not going to read the whole thing, but I'll read Second Ezra chapter 13 and verse 40. Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Shalmaneser, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so they came into another land. I'm gonna hold that. All right, where's the map at? So they came into another land. They came across these waters, right? And they came to the land of the Assyrian Empire. Shalmaneser, right, carried them over the Euphrates. You see that? These are the waters. Carried them over the Tigris and put them in different cities. Those are the waters. And Second Ezra chapter 13. And another land is the land of the Assyrians. Second Ezra chapter 13 and 41. But they took this counsel amongst themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt. Now, where never mankind dwelt is America. Now, the Lord has divided the earth, as he tells you clearly in Second Ezra, the 6th chapter. He divided the earth into 7 parts. Okay. Now, where the northern kingdom went was one of those parts that the other nations didn't live in. All right, let me get that real quick. How the Most High divided the earth. Second Ezra, chapter 6, and verse number, let's see, 42. Here's what I want. Second Ezra, chapter 6 and 42. This is a deeper account of the creation that Ezra goes into. It reads, upon the 3rd day, thou didst command that the waters should be gathered in the 7th part of the earth. 6 parts hast thou dried up and kept them, to the intent that of these, some being planted of God and tilled, might serve thee. So man was made on the 6th day. It's not a coincidence. Man was made to live on the 6 parts of the earth. And man is made to work for 6 days. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. You are made on the 6th day. You're working for 6 days. And you live on the 6 parts of the earth. Now, prior to the northern kingdom coming to this side of the world, man only lived on the other 5 parts of the earth. See, Esau calls it 7 continents. He'll call it North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, and Antarctica. He'll call it 7 continents, right? Now, there are other places where man hasn't been at, but the part of the earth that Gad came over here, this is a part that nobody inhabited before. And each part has a name. Now, the names that we call it today are not the names that God called it. Asia is not the biblical name. Europe is not the true name. China, those are man-made terms. But what we do know, one of the parts that he named was called Arsarat. Okay? Now, that's what we're reading about in 2nd Ezra chapter 13. Okay, let's go back to that in 2nd Ezra chapter 13, and we'll finish that. 2nd Ezra chapter 13 and verse number 41. But they took this counsel amongst themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt. And this was a conspiracy. This is a rebellion, if you will. Because they were in slavery during the Assyrian Empire. But they said, to hell with that, man. We're doing a great escape. And how did they know that mankind never dwelt there? Because they knew about the 6 parts of the earth. They knew about the 7th part, the waters. Our fathers knew about this. They knew about they were able to navigate through the stars. They knew about the constellations. They were privy to things on the earth that the average man didn't know about. You don't think they knew about this, man? Why do you think Solomon was sending men on expeditions to go to these different parts of the earth, to get gold from Ophir, to bring apes, to bring peacocks, to bring these creatures from different parts of the earth? They knew about these things. Some scholars would even say that Solomon's men went to America. Some of those biblical scholars would say that. They didn't live there, but this is 2nd Ezra chapter 13 and 42, that they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. And they entered into Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river. So when you pull the map back up, the waters they originally came over were the Euphrates and the Tigris. Look at the deportation by Salmanassar the 5th and Sargon the 2nd. That's your red arrow. They came over these waters. Now they're leaving the same way, by the river Euphrates, right? By the river Euphrates. Let's finish this. For the 2nd Ezra chapter 13 and 44. For the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over. You see that? So the Most High controlled the elements so they can be able to navigate and get to where they have to go. And you see, when they're during different seasons, the Euphrates River and other rivers, they flood, right? They rise. And if they rise and you're on the waters, once that water goes down, you're going to be stuck on land. So the Most High held still the flood so they can have a clean passage. The scriptures speak about the Euphrates River or the Jordan River abounding at the time of the flood. Let me get that as well. I'm going to open up another. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but let me get this in Ecclesiasticus, the 24th chapter, just to go further into it, right? This is Ecclesiasticus chapter 24 and verse, let's read. Let's see. Bear with me. I'm looking right over it. All right, this 2nd Ezra's, Sirach chapter 24 and verse number, I'll start at, let's see. I'll start at 15. There's another one I want. Here it is, Salakia, 26, Salakia. 2nd Ezra's, keep saying 2nd Ezra, Sirach 24 and 26, right? He maketh the understanding to abound like Euphrates, and as Jordan in the time of harvest. So the Euphrates River during particular seasons floods and abounds, right? Maybe not so much now because the Lord is drying that up, but in the ancient world, 2,500 years ago, that was abounding. Jordan River during the time of the barley harvest, those waters rise. But the Lord held still the flood. He controlled the waters. Because again, once those waters rise and you're navigating on those waters and those waters abate, you'll be stuck on land. You won't know where you are, especially in the ancient world. So that's what the Most High is saying. He showed signs for them, whether they were in the stars through the constellations or through angels, or however, it's not described in detail. But he ensured that they would be able to come to this side of the world. 2nd Ezra chapter 13 and 40. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, Salakia, and the same region is called Arsarath. Then dwelt they there unto the latter time, and now when they shall begin to come. So they're in Arsarath. So that's part of the scattering, the deportations, and the voluntary migration out of this region to this side of the world. All right, let's put up a map of the Western Hemisphere. What Esau calls your Western Hemisphere. So this is where Gad came. North and South America. Asher and Naphtali and Zebulun and Reuben and Gad and Ephraim and Manasseh. And it all started with the four horns. You had the Babylonian siege, right? You had the Babylonian siege as well that happened through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemi Awashai. Right, let's go to Daniel 1 and 1. Right? This is Daniel chapter 1 and 1. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, into Jerusalem and besieged it. This was in 605 BC. This is when that first siege happened. That's the time that Daniel was carried away captive, 605. You had another siege in 597 BC. That's during the time of Ezekiel being led away captive. Slakia, you had a final siege in 586 BC. That's when Zechariah was overthrown. So you had 3 different sieges, not just one big event. Daniel chapter 1 and 2. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, with part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried away into the land of Shinar, to the house of his God, and brought forth the vessels into the treasure house of his God. This was in 605 BC. All right, let's pull this up. Here's another map. The green is the Babylonians taking away the southern kingdom into captivity, displacing us. And there were 3 separate sieges. 3 separate sieges. So the Most High is going to have them pay for this, man. Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 17. All right, to read a little bit more about this Babylonian siege. And really read about really how these nations played a part in our destruction. So we're not rejoicing on Independence Day, man. We're showing you through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemi Awashai how all these nations have played a role and not letting us go. We've always been captive, man. I mean, we have 40 years of peace in the days of Solomon, but that's it. 40 years. Can you imagine that? Yeah, we can imagine it because we're going through it. These other heathen, these nations don't have it. They never, like the Lord said, under the whole heaven have not been done as have been done to Jerusalem. We only have 40 years. Let's focus on number 4 right here, the Neo-Babylonian Empire. All right. Not going to go too deep into this, but let's read Ezekiel chapter 17 and 1. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, put forth a riddle and speak a parable unto the house of Israel, and say, Thus saith Yahweh, a great eagle with great wings, long-winded, full of feathers, which had diverse colors, came into Lebanon and took the highest branch of the cedar. Now, this is a metaphor speaking about how Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian Empire came to the land of Israel and took the highest branch of the cedar. The cedar tree is the nation of Israel, primarily the southern kingdom at this time. The highest branch is the Davidic bloodline, the men that came out of David, the kings. Ezekiel chapter 17:4. He cropped off the top of his young twigs and carried it into a land of traffic. He set it in a city of merchants. So one of the kings were taken captive. Let's pull up kings of Judah. Which king was led away captive and put into a land of traffic? Right, here's something simple. It's a simple chart right here through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemyahushua. Right? Simple map. So after Josiah gave up the ghost, you had Jehoahaz, Jehoiakim, Jeconiah, and Zedekiah. Right? These are the four last kings that came out, right, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemyahushua. Right? That ruled. These are the last kings that ruled. Okay, let's go back to this. So this was Jehoiakim, right? That was led into the land of traffic and set in the city of merchants. He was taken captive. He also took of the seed of the land and planted it in a fruitful field. He placed it by great waters and set it as a willow tree. And he took Zedekiah. Zedekiah is the seed of the land. And he was made a puppet king. He was a willow tree. A willow tree is a tree that is it represents sadness. And it's a very lowly tree, a very submissive tree. So the characteristic of the tree is a direct reflection of the spirit of that man. We went from being a cedar tree, strong and tall and upright, to a willow tree. Zedekiah is a willow tree because he is subservient and in a lower state, reporting as a puppet king to the king of Babylon. Ezekiel 17:6. And it grew and became a spreading vine of low stature. You see that? Whose branches turned toward him. So he relied on being sustained from the Babylonian Empire. And the roots thereof were under him. So it became a vine and brought forth branches and shot forth sprigs. So that's another metaphor that speaks about how Jehoiakim was taken captive. And then Zedekiah was set up, and he himself was put into a position of servitude by the Babylonians. So these heathen have displaced our kings. They have destroyed our fathers. They have led us away into strange lands. Right? Let me get this in Jeremiah 52. Right? Jeremiah 52:31 to prove what happened when a king was taken captive, right? Jehoiakim. And it came to pass in the 37th year of the captivity of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, in the 12th month, in the 25th day of the month, the evil Merodach, king of Babylon, in the first year of his reign, lifted up the head of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, and brought him out of prison. Because we read in Ezekiel 17 that he was taken into a land of traffic, a land of business, trade, and economic power. But then we read about later that he was taken out of the prison. That's Jehoiakim. Let's go to Ezekiel 19 as we read further into the Babylonian Empire. Ezekiel chapter 19:1. Moreover, take thou up a lamentation for the princes of Israel, and say, what thy mother a lioness. She lay down among lions. She nourished her whelps among young lions. So the mother represents the land of Judah. Lands are likened unto mothers. Jerusalem is likened to a mother who loses her children. You can read that in Baruch, the 4th chapter, and many other chapters, Lamentations, etc. So Judah, the land of Judah, is the mother, and her whelps are her sons, which are the kings of Judah. Ezekiel 19:3. And she brought up one of her whelps, and it became a young lion, and it learned to catch the prey. It devoured men. Who's this whelp? This is Jehoahaz. Jehoahaz is one of the kings that came up after Josiah. He began to be in power for a short time. But let's see what happened. Ezekiel 19:4. The nations also heard of him. He was taken in their pit, and they brought him with chains unto the land of Egypt. So we keep touching on how these different nations play a part in us being scattered abroad. All of the nations knew about the kings of Judah, put us in chains, and we got taken captive to the land of Egypt. Right? So Ezekiel 19 goes into the different kings that the Most High set up. And they led to the downfall and the scattering of the Israelites. A lot of these kings were wicked, man, too. So the Lord raised up these nations. Ezekiel chapter 19:5. Now when she saw that she had waited, and her hope was lost, then she took another of her whelps and made him a young lion. So who became king not too long after Jehoahaz? Jehoiakim. Ezekiel 19 is about the land of Judah and Jerusalem raising up two different kings. One, Jehoahaz, who was brought in bondage to Egypt. The other, Jehoiakim. Okay? Let's go back to this. Ezekiel 19:6. And he went up and down among the lions. He became a young lion and learned to catch the prey and devoured men. And a lot of men, they devoured what Israelite men, leading us into sin and confusion. And he knew their desolate palaces and laid waste their cities, and the land was desolate, and the fullness thereof by the noise of his roaring. So there was a lot of wickedness he was doing, right? A lot of evil that these kings of Judah were doing. It reads, then the nations, there's that word nations again. Oh, brother, it's just a white man. No, it says, then the nations set against him on every side from the provinces and spread their net over him. He was taken in their pit. And they put him inward in chains and brought him to the king of Babylon. They brought him to the holds that his voice should no more be heard upon the mountains of Israel. So all our kings were destroyed by the nations. Not nation, the nations. They took Jehoiakim, right? They took Jehoahaz, who was brought down. They took these different men. Now, when you actually go into what happened during the Babylonian siege, I believe this is what I want. I want 2 Kings 24. This 2 Kings chapter 24 and 1. This is Jehoiakim, who we just read about, being part of the siege, right? Being a victim of the siege. 2 Kings 24 and 1. In his days, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up, and Jehoiakim became his servant 3 years, and he turned and rebelled against him. And the Lord sent against him bands of the Chaldees, and bands of the Syrians, and bands of the Moabites, and bands of the children of Ammon. We just read about this in Ezekiel 19. and sent them against the land of Judah to destroy it, according to the word of the Lord, which he spake by his servants the prophets. So a lot of brothers may forget that it wasn't just the Babylonians who destroyed us. Guess who was right there? The Moabites, the Ammonites, the Syrians, the Chaldees. When you dive into Obadiah, Esau was there. They burnt the temple down. So again, for the 8th time, all these nations have played a part in our demise and captivity and slavery. The Greeks. I mean, we all know about the Greeks. Antiochus Epiphanes the fourth, right? I'm not going to spend too much time on the Greeks, but this is First Maccabees, chapter 8 and verse 18. And to entreat them that they would take the yoke from them, for they saw that the kingdom of the Grecians did oppress Israel with servitude. And the Grecians, they scattered us abroad. Them homosexuals, man, child molesters, murderers. I hate July 4th, man. I hate Independence Day because we're not independent. Oh, Jake, I am independent. I got my own business. You don't have your damn own business, man. That business belongs to the so-called white man. You're using his money, his currency. Now, I'm not saying, brothers, if you got, or brother might get offended. I'm not trying to offend a brother who got his own business. The point I'm making is you're not independent because your business, you still got to tap into the so-called white man. You got to check in. You got to use his money. You're not independent. Eve, I'm an independent black woman. You're not an independent black woman. You might be independent from being submissive to the so-called black, Hispanic, and Native American man, but you're dependent on the so-called white man. SNAP, WIC, other benefits, state insurance and city benefit, all types of stuff you get, man, from the state and city. Everybody thinks that they're independent, man. You're in captivity. We're in captivity as a nation. We're all in slavery. All of the camps are all in slavery. We're all in bondage. These Greeks, when you read what Nicanor was doing, let me get that in 2 Maccabees 8, if I'm not mistaken. Right, this 2 Maccabees, chapter 8 and 10. So Nicanor undertook to make so much money of the captive Jews as he should defray the tribute of 2,000 talents, which the king was to pay to the Romans. And that's the mind of Esau. He want to make money off of your slavery. Nicanor said, I want to make so much money off the captive Jews. That's how Esau thinks now. They undertake to make so much money off the captive Jews. Boxing, basketball, we're the comedians, we're the entertainers, we're the athletes, we're the celebrities, we're the fashion guys, we're the music guys. They look to make money off of you. They just told this dude, Jaylen Brown, what they tell this guy? He wants to be the smartest guy in the room. Pretty much shut up, Negro, and dribble. Same thing they told LeBron James. Just jump high and shoot that ball. We don't need you out here, putting us in our place. Because I'm going to tell you something. I said it before and I said it again. One thing about Esau is he knows that we're smarter than him. We're more intelligent. We have more discernment. Our decision-making and our ability to create ideas in a split second to solve problems, survive, and be sufficient is on a level that he can never have. He knows how more intelligent we are, man. How much discernment we have and how we can judge things and things don't add up and we make a quick decision and, you know, so they want these guys to just dribble the ball. I don't know what Jaylen Brown was in there saying, man, but he was probably telling them owners what the deal was. I've been on plantations like that. You brothers been in situations, man. You in these meetings, you tell them Esau what should be done, you know? I mean, I've been in not to go on a rant, but I've been on plantations, man, where you sit down and you tell them Esau, look, this is what y'all need to do. Right? You be the only Jake in there. Hey, this what y'all need to do. Well, you know, I don't know. I mean, it's not a good time. Well, I don't know. Then the company is going downhill like this. Then 3 months later in the meeting, well, we have this idea. We should do this. And the idea is your idea. That you told them 3 months ago that they should have did. So they just want to make money off of you, man. Steal your ideas, use you. So 2 Maccabees 8 and 10 is about what goes on every day. And a lot of you brothers, you've been through stuff like that too, man. Let's see what else they did. 2 Maccabees 8 and 10. And they told that dude, Jaylen Brown, he wants to be he's the smartest guy in the room. It's a disease, right? And that guy's like a NASA man. He's a Harvard lecturer. He went to Cal. And Esau can't do all that, man. Talking about he's a disease, right? That's right. A man, and he's not in the truth, but one thing I did hear him say, all praise to the Most High, whatever that, you know, I haven't seen him physically, you know, do any work, but one thing Esau don't like is when you smarter than them, man. You know? But back to the point. 2 Maccabees 8 and 11. Here's what he did. Wherefore, immediately he sent to the cities upon the seacoast, proclaiming a sale of the captive Jews, and promising that they should have 80 bodies for 1 talent, not expecting the vengeance that was to follow upon him from the Almighty God. And this is another slave trade. This is not the transatlantic slave trade, but there are boats involved, the seacoast involved, and a sale of the so-called black man involved. This is your Mediterranean slave trade. You know that we coined it through the Spirit, because he was on the Mediterranean selling the Jews to the Romans and to other Greco-Roman cities on the seacoast. He said, I got 80 bodies. I got 90 bodies for 1 talent. I'll send you 90 Israelites. Take them out their homeland, and I'll sell them to you for 1 talent. How much is 1 talent today? 90 bodies for 1 talent. All right, let's see how much that is today. Let's do today. Let's see, 90 bodies for what? All right, survey says a biblical talent is worth 350,000 and 4.5 million USD. Right? Let's say 300. Let's say I don't know. Let's highball it. 4.5 million. All right, let's just highball it. 2 Maccabees 8, he said, I'm gonna sell 90 bodies, really for $4.5 million. 4.5 million in today's time, right? So they was making money, man, so much money off the captive Jews. Who else had us in captivity? Pulling it back up. The Romans, right? We all know about the Romans. Let's go to Luke chapter 19, right? This is Luke chapter 19 and verse number 41, right? This is Luke 19 and 41. This is what scholars call the ascension, right? Or his ascent to Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives before the Passover. And it's something, that Yahweh saw as we read this during the time of the Roman Empire. Luke chapter 19 to 41. And when he was come near, he beheld the city and wept over it, saying, if thou hadst known, even thou, at least in this thy day, the things which belong unto thy peace, but now they are hid from thine eyes. So Yahweh was weeping because on the Mount of Olives, which is on the east of Jerusalem, you can look down upon the city. And he started crying because he knew that the Roman Empire was coming to destroy the whole city. He said, I wish y'all knew the thing. I wish I knew. Well, I wish y'all knew what I knew. That's what he's saying. Your peace is going to be taken away from you. He's going to break down what the Romans would do. Luke 19 and 43. For the days shall come upon thee, that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee, and compass thee round, and keep thee in on every side. That's a military siege. They're going to surround Jerusalem. You're going to run out of food. You're going to run out of water. You're going to eat each other. Eat every green thing. Eat your belt, your girdle. Eat your woman, your children. Eat your oxen, your cattle. And you're going to starve to death and die. And Yahweh wept over that, man. Because he cared about his people. Luke 19 and 44. And shall lay thee even with the ground, and thy children within thee, and they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knewest not the time of thy visitation. So he said the Romans are coming to kill. Let's go to Luke 21. St. Luke chapter 21 and verse number 20. And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. This is what the scholars call the Roman Amalekite Wars. I got to say that. And you have multiple wars. But in 70 AD was the main destruction of the temple and the city. Now, even after 70 AD, you still had Israelites that lived in that area. It wasn't an extinction. You still had Israelites that lived there, but a majority of them were sold or they fled. Luke 21 and 21. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereunto. Because this happened during the time of the Passover. A lot of times, even when Pompey came, around 65 BC or so, he came and he attacked Judea and Jerusalem around the time of on a Sabbath, rather. A lot of these demons, they want to attack you and us at our high holy days. So when he's saying, let not them that are in the countries enter thereunto, because Titus, who actually was not the mastermind behind this, the mastermind was Tiberius Julius Alexander, which was actually an Israelite from Alexandria, Egypt, if I'm not mistaken, who actually was the brains behind the operation. And they came during the Passover, and that's when they came and raped, robbed, and murdered. That was Tiberius Julius Alexander, a sellout. It's always a sellout. It's always one of them. Luke 21 and 22. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. For there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And this was a horrible, horrible, horrific massacre that these Edomites did, man. And they led us into slavery into the different parts of the Mediterranean. Let's see if they have a map. Post, well, let's do this. 70 AD slavery of Jews. Right? I don't know if they have a map or not, but let's see if they got it. Look at this. See if I can open this up. Make it a little more clear. Okay, let me go. All right. So this is a quick key for the legend, right? For the map legend. According to Philo of Alexandria, in the 1st century AD, Jews in Egypt numbered 1 million, which was 12% of the population, including 200,000 in Alexandria, 40% of the city's population. So this is a map of the diaspora until the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. And you see where the Israelites were. They were all over the world, the known world at this time, scattered. Rather, it was slavery, oppression, robbery, murder, killings, lynchings, lootings by means of the horns. Now, in 70 AD, a lot of Jews fled into Africa. They weren't living in a jungle or some damn amongst the chimpanzees of the sub-Saharan. They were living in different parts. Alexandria, Cyrene. Remember, you had Simon of Cyrene, who carried the cross of Yahushua, who lived in Libya. You had Apollos, another man from Alexandria. You had Israelites all over. Okay? Now, this is before 70 AD. Look where we were living at. Persia, India. Now, that's a good map. That's not what I wanted, but that's still good through the Spirit. Let's see if I can get this map right here. Oh, no, it's dealing with Amalek, right? But you get the point, right? You get the point. This is the infamous Negro Land map, which was a map of West Africa around the 1700s that actually shows the kingdom of Judah. So in process of time, we move from East Africa to Central and to West Africa, to the land of Ham, the kingdom of Judah, or Ouida slave coast. A lot of the slave ports had Hebrew names. I looked at a list, this was a long time ago, and they had a list or a registry of all of the slaves' names, and they all ended in Yah. I don't know if I'll have time to find that, but all of the names ended in Yah because they were all Israelites who knew the name Yahweh, Ba'ashmi Yahushua. All their fathers knew Yahweh, Ba'ashmi Yahushua. You know what? Let me see. I'm going to just spend maybe 5 seconds if I can find that. Slaves on ship. And I didn't plan on going to this, so I'm not prepared, but, it's the Spirit. Names end with Yah. Let me see if they have this. This may be it. Okay. So this is I can't get the exact source, but this looks familiar. They got the ship name, they got the arrival, and they got where they were going. They got all of that, right? Let's see. Enya, Anya, Yahoo. These are names of Israelites on slave ships. They got the age, height, sex, origin. Tayaho, Haigaya, Bunya, Cardia, Yarya, Barbanya, Yafi, Daya, Bandania. So Why was it all Yah? Because they all knew that the Most High's name was Yahweh. Right? Here's a few more. What we got? Akidia, Jinia, Baya, Bayase, Boya. Right? You get the point. Right? A lot of these names ended in Yah, which goes back to the map that I pulled up with the kingdom of Judah. Okay, with the kingdom of Judah and so-called Negro land. And there were pages of this, man. Just pages of Israelites who had actual names and their names ended in Yah, brought over here and discontinued from their heritage. Part of the heritage is the name of Yahweh, Bashmi Yahushua. Right? And again, the slave trade was primarily founded or funded by Amalek. Right? By your Amalekites. Okay? And you see they changed a lot of their names, obviously. Right? But we showed you kind of what their actual names used to be. Now, let's go back to Zechariah. Right? Zechariah 1. This is Zechariah chapter 1 and verse number 18. Then lifted I up mine eyes and saw, and behold, 4 horns. We broke down the 4 horns, right? The 4 horns are the powers of the nations that played a part in our diaspora, us being scattered abroad through war, conquest, induced famine, destruction, sieges, slavery, slave trades, etc. Those are the 4 horns. We broke down the number 4 and we broke down horns. That's what we've been going into, these different kingdoms, these different powers, right? And Zechariah 1 and 19. And I said unto the angel that talked with me, what be these? And he answered me, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. So we put this map up showing you the different powers, the different horns that played a part in us being scattered abroad and destroyed. Okay? All these nations and all these time periods and all these forms of oppression have played an integral part of fulfilling the vision that Zechariah saw about how they scattered us. They forced a diaspora. Now, Zechariah 1 and 20. And Yahweh Bashmi Yahushai showed me 4 carpenters. Then said I, what come these to do? Meaning, what are these carpenters doing? And he spake, saying, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, so that no man did lift up his head. But these are come to fray them, to cast out the horns of the Gentiles, which lifted up their horn over the land of Judah to scatter it. So you have 4 carpenters. It's not literally 4 as a number. It's an indefinite amount, just like the 4 horns, of individuals who the Most High have created to break these horns down. Now, this word carpenter does not mean the guy that you see, what the hell, this guy, right? Did the Lord have 4 carpenters? Actually, guys, they were master carpenters and, they were sitting up there chopping wood. Is this who the Lord is talking about? Are these 3 of the 4 carpenters? Is this what Yahweh Bashmel Shah mentions? He saw 4 carpenters, right? And you got Ephraim or and Judah and a Benjamite or whatever. No. Let's go into this word, right? Let's go into that word carpenters, right? Through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashmel Shah. Harash, right? And it reads craftsman artisan, engraver, graver, artificer, graver, artificer, skillful to destroy, right? Let's focus on that. Skillful to destroy. So the job of these carpenters is to break down the horns. That's why it said in Zechariah, these are come to fray them, to scare them, to put fear in them, to make them afraid. That's the job of the carpenters. All right. Now, here's the Jacinius Hebrew Chaldee lexicon. An artificer of iron, brass, stone, and wood, a smith, a mason, or a carpenter. An artificer. Metaphor, an artificer of destruction. An artificer of destruction. What is an artificer? An artificer is a skilled craftsman, artisan, or inventor who creates and modifies objects using ingenuity and specialized knowledge. So these carpenters are artificers. They're not created to build up the horns, but they are artificers of destruction. Their job is to break these horns down and fray them. That's what we read in Zechariah 1. Let's go back to that. These are come to fray them. Zechariah 1 and 21. Then said I, what come these to do? And he spake, saying, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, so that no man did lift up his head. But these are come to fray them, to cast out the horns of the Gentiles. So they're doing two jobs, to fray and to cast out. Now, the word fray means what? Just so brothers understand exactly what the carpenters are coming to do. Here's the etymology of the word fray. Filling of alarm, shorten of a fray or afraid, meaning a brawl, a fight, right? It's a shortening of the word fray, which means a feeling of alarm, to brawl or to fight. Fear, terror, state of alarm produced by a sudden disturbance. Disturbance, trouble, disturb. So there are carpenters on the earth whose job, by doing the work of Yahweh Shai, they're here to fray, meaning put fear in the Gentile powers and to cast them out. Is it literally for carpenters? No, right? But they have the same spirit as a craftsman, right? As a wise master builder to break down and to destroy. This is Ezekiel, Slakia, Exodus 31, by the craftsman named Bezalel. Ezekiel 31 and 1, right? A craftsman named Bezalel. He's an artificer as well. And Yahweh, Pashmi Shai, spake unto Moses, saying, see, I have called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. And I have filled him with the Spirit of God, in wisdom, and in understanding, and in knowledge, and in all manner of workmanship. So this is on a physical level. He was able to do anything and everything that you could think of. Iron, he got it. Gold, no problem, right? Clay, ain't no big deal, man. He could deal with any type of element and make and do whatever he wanted to do because the Most High put that spirit on him. That's on a carnal level. On a spiritual side, the Most High put his wisdom and understanding and knowledge of workmanship in the mind of the four carpenters. And their job is to cast out and break down the horns. Here's a visual, right? Here's a visual. Here's the four horns. Here's the powers. Here's the four carpenters. and they're breaking down and casting out the four horns. So if the four horns, Salakia, are these heathen powers, terrestrial powers that be, then the four carpenters represent the forces on the right-hand side that are breaking them down. Okay? Starting first and foremost with the elect, men of Yahweh Ba'ashmiawashad, whose job in the last days is to fray and to cast out the horns. Right? Their job is to fray and cast out the horns. It's not actually four horns, literally, and it's not literally four carpenters. We broke that down. Right? Four represents indefinite amount, says fullness, completion. Right? Fullness and completion. Now, let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 10. Let's kind of break down what these carpenters are doing. 2 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse number 3. It reads, "For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds." So the job of the carpenters, how they put fear in these Gentile powers, is by pulling down their strongholds. That's chopping those horns off. When we're at camp, we're doing the work of Yahweh Ba'ashmiawashad. This is what we're doing. When we're breaking down the stronghold of Christianity, it's fraying the horns. It's putting fear in them. When we prophesy, when we expose these nations, when we shake the hand, when we teach repentance, teach the law, teach salvation, do these lives, go to camp, rebuke, build families up, build men of Yahweh Ba'ashmiawashad up. It's fraying the horns and breaking them down. And first, it starts spiritually. Right? The carpenters aren't doing this physically, they're doing it spiritually. It's going to turn physical, but right now it's spiritual. Right? They're pulling down strongholds. 2 Corinthians chapter 10 and 5. Casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Hamashiach Yahushua. So the job of these carpenters is to pull down all of the lies, all of the strongholds, all of the confusion, and that's putting fear in these nations. They are skillful to do these things, right? This is Ezekiel chapter 21, right? And verse 31, right? Ezekiel chapter 21 and 31. "And I will pour out mine indignation upon thee, and I will blow against thee in the fire of my wrath, and deliver thee into the hand of brutish men and skillful to destroy." So in this context, the elect have skill to destroy. They have skill to go into the Hebrew. Brothers are great in the Greek. Some brothers are beautiful in the Latin. Some brothers are great in prophecy, great in leadership, great in exhortation, great in history. They go into this history book, that document, that manuscript. They are skillful carpenters to destroy and fray the horns that have been scattering us for the last few thousand years. Skillful to destroy. That's the job of a carpenter. He has skill to break down, but he himself also has skill to destroy. Right? Let's go to the book of Romans. Right? Let's go to Romans. Actually, let's go to Jeremiah. That's what I want. Right? There's another precept I wanted to get. Lord willing, it comes back to me. But this is Jeremiah chapter 1 and verse 9. "Then Yahweh put forth his hand and touched my mouth. And Yahweh Ba'ashmiawashai said unto me, Behold, I have put my words in thy mouth." That's what the Most High told Jeremiah. "See, I have set thee over." So let me read that again. Jeremiah chapter 1 and 10. "See, I have this day set thee over the nations, and over the kingdoms, to root out and to pull down and to destroy and to throw down, to build and to plant. That's what the carpenter can do. The carpenter now has power to root out these nations, to pull down lies, to pull down their kings, to destroy their philosophies, to overthrow their empires. He has power to throw down. That's how you cast out the horns, right? The prophets and the men of Yahweh Shemashai have been given his power in the last days to throw down, pull down, and destroy. Another job, another title for the carpenters are saviors. That's another name. They're called saviors. This is the book of Nehemiah, chapter 9 and verse number 27. They are called saviors. Nehemiah chapter 9 and 27. Therefore, thou deliverest them into the hand of their enemies, who vexed them. And in the time of their trouble, when they cried unto thee, thou heardest them from heaven, and according to thy manifold mercies, thou gavest them saviors, who saved them out of the hand of their enemies. You had ancient saviors like Ehud and Samson, Othniel, Jephthah, all these men that the Most High set up. Moses is a savior, Nehemiah. There are different men throughout different captivities who the Lord raises up to help them from the horns. In these last days, the four carpenters represent the saviors who are casting out the horns of the Gentiles. Another title for the saviors are the elect, the 144,000. That 1/3, they are the saviors. And they're saving their people by teaching them repentance. Who the Most High is, what his name is. His name is Yahweh. His son name is Yahweh Shai. We have to ask Yahweh Ba'ashmi Shai for forgiveness of our sins. Accept the grace that the Most High gave us through his son Yahweh Shai. Be obedient and complicit to the law. Love one another. Rebuke, do this work. Reveal these nations' wickedness. Judge them according to the knowledge that the Most High gave us. That's the job of the saviors. Let's go to Isaiah. Actually, you know what? Let me get this in Obadiah. Right? It made me think of this as well. Obadiah, verse number 21. And saviors shall come up on Mount Zion to judge the mount of Esau, and the kingdom shall be Yahweh's. And that's when it's all said and done. The saviors are going to stand up. They're going to judge the mount of Esau according to the sins that they have committed. And the kingdom's going to belong to the Most High, straight up and down. Now, there's another precept I wanted to get. Lord willing, it comes back to me. But these are the saviors whom the Most High has set up in the last days. Right? Let's go to that's what I wanted, Isaiah 19. Salakia. And before I get Isaiah 19 and 16, let's touch on this one more time. What's one of the jobs of the four carpenters? What's one of the jobs that they're going to do? Zechariah 1:21. Then said I, what come these to do? And he spake, saying, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, so that no man did lift up his head, but these are come to fray them. So another job of the four carpenters is to fray them. We went into that word. It means to put fear in their spirit, to make them tremble, make them terrified. Here's the word in the Hebrew. To tremble, this is the word fray in the Hebrew. To tremble, quake, move about, be afraid, be startled, be terrified. To tremble, quake. To tremble, be anxiously careful. All right, let me know if you can hear me. All right, let me know if you can hear me and see me through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Shah. Satan tried to come immediately as we're winding down the lesson, right? Okay, so we should be back. Right? See how we look at the spirit. I'm gonna pull this up. It's a little choppy. All right, able to. All right, so it's lucky. I'm gonna go into it, right? You know, most high willing, brothers can still hear me, and at least hear the word of the Most High, right? At least hear the word of the Most High. So let me go back to this in Job. Isaiah the 19th chapter, right? Let's go to Acts 24. See that? Acts 24 and 25, right? About the spirit of Fran and the four carpenters. It reads Acts 24 and 25. And as he reasoned of righteousness, temperance, judgment come, Felix trembled and answered, go thy way, for this time. When I have a convenient season, I will call for thee. So when the men of the Most High are going into the spirit, they bringing out the precepts, they're talking about righteousness, godliness, prophecy. These heathen tremble and they don't want you around them. They don't want your presence. They'll cast you out and tell you to flee and go somewhere, man. Anything but have you come and tell them their sins and judge them according to their confusion, right? So this is a good example of the four carpenters and the spirit of freeing these powers, right? Let's go to Isaiah 19. Isaiah chapter 19 and verse number 16. And that day shall Egypt be like unto women, and they shall be afraid and fear because of the shaking of the hand of the Lord of hosts, which he shaketh over it. And this is speaking about how the elites, the politicians, the government, even the public are afraid. They're going to be afraid and fear because all of the prophecies that the men of the Most High have been saying are going to come to pass about the famine, martial law, all hell breaking loose, starvation, World War III. They see the elect rising up. They're going to know at some point in time that the truth is the truth. And this is a fulfillment of Zechariah, the first chapter. That spirit of Fran and making them afraid because of the shaking of the hand, because of the prophets. Isaiah 19 and 17. And the land of Judah shall be a terror unto Egypt. Everyone that maketh mention thereof shall be afraid in himself because of the counsel of the Lord of hosts, which he hath determined against it. And these days draw nigh, man. Right? When the men of the Most High, it's going to be like when Samuel was coming through in 1 Samuel 16 and 4 on down. When Samuel was going through, and the elders, they trembled and said, art thou or doest thou come peaceably? Paraphrasing. These are the days on the earth, man. When the men of the Most High are going to be walking through the streets with a staff in their hand, a mitre in their garment on, their fringes on, and these people are going to be bowing down, man, scared to death, trying to get them arrested, terrified. They were terrified of Jeremiah, terrified of all the ancient prophets. That's that fraying spirit, because they know that what we're saying is the truth and that their kingdom is coming to an end, right? And it's inevitable. There's nothing they could do about it. This is Job chapter 15 and verse 20. The wicked man travaileth with pain all his days, and the number of years is hidden to the oppressor. A dreadful sound is in his ears, and prosperity the destroyer shall come upon them. And again, what is the dreadful sound in the ears of the so-called white man? These lies, the breakdowns. Every Kwame Yasha'Allah, he has a damn heart attack. Every time he hears Yahweh Shemiah was shy, his ear bleeds, man. Every time we say America is going to be destroyed, he knows it. When we call him the wicked, we call him the devil, they know it. We call this place a satanic kingdom, they know it. This is the dreadful sound, the shofar blowing, the women and children rejoicing at their destruction, the feast days being set up, godly talk, righteousness, purity, holiness, breakdowns, live streams, all this, man. This is the dreadful sound in the ears of the so-called white man. They hate these lives, man. They hate camp. They hate the brothers in the other camps that do the work, man. Because we are testifying. We're really testifying. We're giving a testimony as a witness to what Yahweh is doing on the earth. We're the witnesses of Yahweh Shemiah Washai. And we're witnessing the judgments, man. Right? We are witnesses to his judgment. And anytime you got witnesses coming up and their stories aligned and it's the truth and you're trying to be evil, you're going to be scared to death, especially when a faithful witness comes up. Like, oh, he about to tell the truth, man. This guy ain't going to keep it a buck. He's going to say what it is. And that's us, man. We're going to say what it is. We're going to keep it a buck. We're going to say, we're going to say the truth. You are the wicked. You're going to be destroyed and raped, robbed, murdered. America's over. And they hate that. They hate it. Let's go back to Zechariah. Right? It's like, yeah, I want the blue letter again. Right? Let me see. This is Con. Let's go back to Zechariah, the first chapter. So these devils, man, they got their, where is this at? 250 years in the making. All you nations have oppressed, robbed, murdered, killed, enslaved, especially Babylon the Great, man. The Lord speaks about you having the souls of men captive. In Revelation, the 18th chapter. The souls of men. 250 years in the making of confusion, of oppression. All you nations have refused to give us our independence, but Yahweh, he's going to give us independence, man. Right? He's going to give us our independence. Let's go to Psalms chapter 146. This is Psalms chapter 146 and verse 5. And these devils, man, they celebrating with fireworks. We ain't going to have no fireworks. We're going to have nuclear destruction. We're going to have bombs dropping. We're going to have chariots. Let's see who celebrates their independence better, the so-called white man or the elect. Let's see. Let's compare America's 250-year anniversary, and let's see how they celebrate. Just observe. And most high willing, when we get beamed up, let's look at and what we did and what we doing and how this thing really going to play out. Fireworks. That's all he got. Wait. The Lord said we were like them that dream in Psalms 126. You're talking about turning up for independence. We sang a whole song when we came out of Egypt. The Lord destroyed Pharaoh, man. We would say, threw him in the Red Sea. The Most High is a man of war. The Most High is his name. Hey, the woman had the, Miriam had the timbrel, man. She was doing her thing. The other sisters was dancing. Let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you this, man. If you an Edomite watching this, you can't turn up like us, man. We do it big. I mean, this thing is going to be amazing. You know? You can't do it like us, Esau. You don't have the salt. You don't have the skill. You don't have the will. You don't have it. When we get up out of here, man. Now, it's not in the scriptures. You can say, well, prove it. I prove it. I can't prove it. But I believe we're going to have a feast day, a major feast day after the destruction of America. Well, brother, show me what scripture's at. Well, brother, firsthand, I can't show you a scripture. Right? But I wouldn't be surprised if the Most High had like a 7-month long or 7-week long feast day about our independence from the so-called white man. And it might be a holy day after Esau's exterminated. Again, I can't prove it. Don't hit the email. Don't hit the inbox. Well, y'all brothers said, well, why did y'all brothers? Look, brother, right? Straight up, it's my opinion. I believe we're going to have a feast day after the destruction of the so-called white man. After he's completely taken out. That's a cause for celebration. It's a major cause. That is a major cause for celebration. Right? Everybody going to turn up. The Most High might have the nations kind of, turn up. There might be a day off for the nations. I hope not, but, Nevertheless, this is Psalms chapter 146 and verse 5. Happy is he that hath the God of Jacob for his help, whose hope is in Yahweh his God. And I'm happy, man, that we got the Most High, man. I'm happy. I don't need the. And Esau got his independence from another Edomite. You damn idiots, man. You fought your own people to get independence from your own people, just to get conquered by Amalek and infiltrated through the Federal Reserve and a financial system. So you're not independent. All them Edomites who fought for their independence from England, that was all an inside job. So it was vanity anyway, when you really dive into the history. But we're happy that we're going to have true independence, man. So again, Psalms 146 and 5. Happy is he that hath the God of Jacob for his help. The water Yahweh Ba'ashmi Awashai for being our help. Because nobody else is going to help us. Whose hope is in the Lord his God, which made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that therein is, which keepeth truth forever, which executeth judgment for the oppressed, which giveth food to the hungry. Yahweh looseth the prisoners. So the Most High is going to loose the prisoners. He's going to execute judgment for the oppressed. He's going to give food to the hungry. He's going to deliver us, man. He's going to give us a sight to see. The Lord said, only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked. Right? Let's go to Zephaniah chapter 3. We're going to get our independence, man. Right? We're going to turn up. Strong drink, wine, music, singing men, singing women, beautiful garments. Right? This is Zephaniah chapter 3 and verse number 15. The Lord hath taken away thy judgments. He has cast out thine enemy, the King of Israel. Even Yahweh is in the midst of thee. Thou shalt not see evil anymore. See that? And the Most High said we're not going to see evil anymore, man. Right? We're not going to see murders and, gang banging and violence and confusion and wickedness and lust and murder and lynching and robbery and fireworks and proud, wicked presidents. We're not going to see evil anymore. The Most High has the spirit on men, tearing down the horns, making them fray, and eventually putting them in slavery. And that day it shall be said to Jerusalem, fear thou not, and to Zion, let not thy hands be slack. The Lord thy God is in the midst. The Lord thy God in the midst of thee is mighty. He will save. He will rejoice over thee with joy. He will rest in his love. He will joy over thee with singing. I will gather them that are sorrowful for the solemn assembly, who are of thee, to whom the reproach of it was a burden. Behold, at that time, I will undo all that afflict thee. Most High is going to hit that reset button. He's going to undo all the people that afflicted us. Look at this, man. This. All these nations, man, we've only had, again, 40 years. Oh, brother, what about David? David had 40. David was fighting for his life, man. He had internal rebellion with his sons. He had external fights with the Ammonites and the Philistines. We've never had multiple generations of peace. The Most High is going to undo all of that, right? Let's read that again. Zephaniah 3:19. Behold, at that time I will undo all that afflict thee, and I will save her that halteth, and gather her that was driven out, and I will get them praise and fame in every land where they have been put to shame. We're going to be famous. And I'm not talking Michael Jackson famous. I'm not talking Michael Jordan famous. We're going to be so famous. We're going to be so known on the earth that people are going to see, they're just going to bow down. They're not going to look you in the eye. They're going to run away from you. You're going to be so, you don't have to worry about selling your soul, man. Going to a Diddy party, man. Freaking off. Signing the contract in blood. Getting popped by an old Amalekite, man. Killing your mother in a fire and sacrificing your family members for a multi-million-dollar deal, man. To get famous, man. The hell with the fame in this man's world, man. The hell with his money. The hell with his celebrities. His Hollywood Walk of Fame. His awards, man. All these men got popped, drugged, sold out, freaked off, molested, groped, touched, sacrificed their families, man. Sacrificed their integrity. Mothers got killed. Sons got killed. Children got killed. Wives got killed, man. Did strange things that they can't have mentioned. They done tattooed their body all up to cover their darkness up, man. They got dark, sunken eyes, bugged out, piercings, freaked out, whored out. The hell with the fame in this man's world, man. The Most High is going to get his fame. He's going to get his glory. That's after he gets the glory. After he gets his fame, he's going to give us that, man. He said, I will get them praise and fame in every land where they have been put to shame. Zephaniah 3:20. At that time will I bring you again, even the time that I gather you. For I will make you a name and a praise among all the people of the earth when I turn back your captivity before your eyes, saith Yahweh, Bashmi Awashai. With that, we're going to close up, giving, of course, our honor and glory to Yahweh, Bashmi Awashai. The hell with the so-called white man Independence Day. The hell with the four horns, the violence, the wickedness, and the confusion of these other nations. Keep the Sabbath holy. No buying, no selling, no work, no cooking, no sex on the Sabbath, no speaking your own words, no doing your own pleasures. This day is a holy convocation, the most sanctified day, the most holy day that the Most High hath given the children of Israel in the last days. Keep it holy, keep it pure, meditate in the word of the Most High, read, study, go over your notes, stay in the spirit. If you're in a DMB area, we'll be prophesying in DC tomorrow from 12 p.m. to whenever Yahweh Shai or Yahweh Bashmi Awashai shuts this thing down, man. So come out, hear the word of the Most High, get edified, gather together. The flyer and the information's all out there. It's a unity camp, HOYWFI, another annual camp through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashmi Awashai. Most High willing you edified for another midnight Sabbath lesson. Kwam Yashal. Shalom.